A middle-aged man, wearing a fur coat, walked out of the inn. He hovered in midair and looked at the face above, said, "As far as I know, your people attacked him first. In addition to that, no one is allowed to fight within the perimeter of my inn for any reason. Do you want to challenge that rule right now?" A middle-aged man wearing a fur coat walked out of the inn. He hovered in midair and looked at the face above, said, "As far as I know, your people attacked him first. In addition to that, no one is allowed to fight within the perimeter of my inn for any reason. Do you want to challenge that rule right now?" While speaking, he fixed his piercing gaze on the face floating in the void. The middle-aged man was the owner of the Ninth Inn. He was also a Ninth Order Renhuang, and one of Giant God City's best cultivators, who possessed tremendous power. Although he looked like he was in his 40s, it was said that he had been operating the Ninth Inn on 9th Street for hundreds of years. Neither his appearance nor his cultivation level changed from when he first opened the Ninth Inn. The top cultivators on 9th Street certainly knew each other very well. Needless to say, the chief elder of the Tianyi Pavilion was aware of the identity and ability of the owner of the Ninth Inn. Even so, he was here not to represent himself, but the Tianyi Pavilion. Tang Chun was one of the people he killed. I'm sure that you know he was Grandmaster Tianbao's disciple. One of the other two men was from the Wang family. The Ninth Inn may have its own rules, but we better honor the code of 9th Street as well. How about handing him over to me? The face responded, "Since when does the 9th Street have a code? Handing him over to you would ruin the reputation of my inn, wouldn't it?" The middle-aged man in the fur coat replied in a casual and relaxed manner. It was obvious that he would never let the chief elder take Yi Futian away. "Lin Sheng, can you do me this one favor?" A rusty old voice said from afar. Many people were startled at once. In the meantime, they felt a rush of formidable energy radiating upon 9th Street. Everyone looked into the distance, knowing who was speaking. It was Grandmaster Tianbao. Plenty of people on 9th Street had heard Grandmaster Tianbao's voice before. Grandmaster Tianbao was asking Lin Sheng, the owner of the Ninth Inn, to surrender the mysterious man who killed his disciple Tang Chun. "Grandmaster, I would gladly lend a hand if it was anything else. But this is about the fundamental rule of my inn. How can I secure my place on 9th Street in the future if I break the rule right now? Therefore, I have no choice but to ask for your forgiveness and understanding," Lin Sheng replied. He couldn't break his own rule. The rule was the foundation of the Ninth Inn, and how Lin Sheng established himself on 9th Street. The Ninth Inn would be worthless and degraded if he made an exception now. Lin Sheng, just this one time. Make an exception once, for Grandmaster Tianbao's sake. I'm sure everyone on 9th Street can understand it. We will buy you drinks to show our appreciation another day. Another voice rang out. It was the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion this time. "Lin Sheng, this man murdered an offspring of our Wang family in broad daylight. Are you determined to protect him?" Another voice boomed. At this point, the confrontation occurring in the Ninth Inn attracted everyone's attention on 9th Street. Several top cultivators active on the 9th Street were demanding the Ninth Inn to surrender Yi Futian. Although conflicts were rather common and frequent on 9th Street, it was different this time. To everyone's surprise, a mysterious outsider who had no roots in Giant God City slaughtered Tang Chun and two other men in public and stirred up this storm. The uproar probably would calm down once Yi Futian was killed in revenge. After all, he had no one to rely on 9th Street. The famed 9th Street of Giant God City is not so impressive after all. At this moment, Yi Futian, who was sitting in the middle of the courtyard, suddenly spoke up. Countless pairs of eyes focused on him in an instant. Wearing a metal mask, Yi Futian lowered his head and groomed Baize's white fur in a laid-back manner. He said, "A couple of self-important fools tried to badger me into meeting someone, and even used force on me. They acted so recklessly and blindly, and thought some Grandmaster Tianbao is worthy of my visit." The crowd was astounded by Yi Futian's words. Grandmaster Tianbao, the best alchemy master and armorer in the 9th Street, was not deserving of his visit? Yi Futian slowly stood up. The intense energy of the great path of life burst out of his body and shot up into the clouds. The green divine light illuminated the sky and made every cultivator's heart tremble. The energy of the great path of life was formidable and impeccable. They attacked me since I didn't want to go. Don't they deserve to be killed? Yi Futian looked up and said, They think a mere Grandmaster Tianbao can summon me at will. Let me tell you, none of the masters on 9th Street are worthy of my attention. Yi Futian's contemptuous remark left everyone open-mouthed. Many people in the crowd began to examine Yi Futian again carefully. Grandmaster Tianbao was held in such high regard on 9th Street because of his super skill of making pills. An alchemy grandmaster was highly cherished and respected among cultivators. Grandmaster Tianbao could create incalculable value for the Tianyi Pavilion. Nevertheless, this mysterious man might be an alchemy grandmaster who had even better potential than Grandmaster Tianbao. He had the perfect great path of life with vigorous and robust energy of the great path. As a result, he must be able to make perfect pills of the great path of life. It was beyond imagination how remarkable the pills he made would be if he advanced to a higher cultivation level in the future. No wonder he didn't care for Grandmaster Tianbao at all. Lin Sheng was also surprised by how powerful Yi Futian was. He looked up at the people in the void and said, You all saw it with your own eyes. How would you react if I sent some people over to demand your presence? According to Lin Sheng, he already believed that Yi Futian was on equal footing with Grandmaster Tianbao. In his opinion, Grandmaster Tianbao had no right to summon Yi Futian to the Tianyi Pavilion. Grandmaster Tianbao never expected that Yi Futian wouldn't appreciate his imperious and condescending invitation. His men tried to strong-arm Yi Futian. Of course, Yi Futian would fight back. Shameless, Grandmaster Tianbao's voice said from a distance. You should respect me as your senior, even if you have an extraordinary great path and can make excellent pills. I sent people to invite you out of courtesy. Who would have thought that you were such a haughty man? Out of courtesy? Yi Futian gazed into the distance and said, I have returned to the inn and have no interest in heading out again today. But I will visit the Tianyi Pavilion tomorrow and see how good you really are at alchemy. Was that a challenge? Did this mysterious alchemy grandmaster intend to challenge Grandmaster Tianbao in alchemy? How arrogant. It seemed that he had considered Grandmaster Tianbao beneath him since the beginning. What a conceited man he must be. Standing in the courtyard, he was facing several top cultivators of 9th Street, who came to capture him. Yet he didn't take them seriously at all. Was it simply the typical arrogance of an alchemy grandmaster? How fascinating, Lin Sheng said with a smile. You all have heard him. This mysterious master will pay a call on the Tianyi Pavilion tomorrow, and we will be able to witness the spectacle by then. Everyone on 9th Street was watching the situation in the 9th Inn closely. They were all shocked that the mysterious master dared to challenge Grandmaster Tianbao. His arrogance was beyond people's imagination. If he really was so capable, Grandmaster Tianbao indeed insulted him by sending his disciple to summon him to the Tianyi Pavilion. Even the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion was at a loss for words at this moment. Yi Futian had informed them that he would go to the Tianyi Pavilion tomorrow. What else could they do at this point? While the cabinet master was still contemplating a response, Grandmaster Tianbao answered offhandedly, In that case, I will be waiting for you in the Tianyi Pavilion. Let's wait for a day then. The domineering energy was pulled back. The cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion left, and the face in the void also disappeared. The crowd dispersed in a short time. However, a few Renhuangs were still monitoring the inn with the divine consciousness, as though they were worried that Yi Futian would slip away. Although the top cultivators took off, for now, 9th Street was thrown in a ferment. Everyone discussed the mysterious outsider, who issued a challenge to Grandmaster Tianbao, who was unrivaled in 9th Street when it came to alchemy. Grandmaster Tianbao could make extremely high-grade pills, and had been a well-respected guest of the Tianyi Pavilion. All the big fish in the 9th Street gladly associated themselves with Grandmaster Tianbao. Even the ancient royal family of Duan had sent people to make contact with him. If not for having a better grandmaster within the Duan family, they would undoubtedly recruit Grandmaster Tianbao. Nonetheless, many people were not fully convinced yet. Although the mysterious man had a perfect great path, he was on a lower cultivation level than Grandmaster Tianbao. It would not be easy for him to compete with Grandmaster Tianbao in alchemy. Having said that, some people might be willing to take him under their protection, as long as he could display excellent alchemy skills. The news soon spread from 9th Street to other parts of Giant God City. The arrogant and mysterious master on 9th Street slowly rose to fame. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2135. Took the Hook. Chapter 2135. Took the Hook. Yi Futian continued to rest in the courtyard after the top cultivators left. Grandmaster Tianbao was the best and the most renowned alchemy master on 9th Street. It was alleged that he could make 9th grade pills of the great paths. Yi Futian certainly couldn't do that. But that didn't matter. Since Yi Futian was at a much lower cultivation level than Grandmaster Tianbao, he couldn't win the challenge. Nevertheless, winning was not his goal anyway. He simply needed to do his best to make pills and take advantage of Grandmaster Tianbao's fame during the process. An alchemy grandmaster from the outsider challenged the best alchemy grandmaster on 9th Street. Yi Futian was confident that his move had attracted considerable public attention. "Master," a voice rang out. Lin Sheng, the owner of the 9th Inn, walked over. Yi Futian nodded slightly at Lin Sheng and said, "Please have a seat." Lin Sheng sat down right away without feigning politeness. He said to Yi Futian, "Master, why did you issue a challenge to Grandmaster Tianbao? Tianyi Pavilion is their territory. You might get yourself in trouble there. Are you sure that you can walk out unscathed?" "It's going to be all right," Yi Futian replied. "I won't bring you any trouble." "That's not what I meant," Lin Sheng explained with a smile. But he still didn't understand where Yi Futian's confidence came from. He continued, "Perhaps someone will step up and offer you protection if you can demonstrate superlative alchemy skills. In that case, even the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion wouldn't harm you without thinking twice. I'm heartened by your optimism, and I wish you the best of luck." "Thank you." Yi Futian gave an enigmatic nod. Lin Sheng cracked a smile and said, "Master, I will leave you to it then." After that, Lin Sheng stood up and left the courtyard. He was rather excited about what might happen at the Tianyi Pavilion tomorrow. Yi Futian seemed impossible for him to read. Could he really compete with Grandmaster Tianbao in alchemy? Lin Sheng couldn't predict the result, and had no choice but to wait patiently. He was not the only one on the edge of his seat. A lot of people were waiting with bated breath as the news circulating in and beyond 9th Street. What kind of a place was the Tianyi Pavilion? It was the largest trading center on 9th Street. On top of that, Grandmaster Tianbao was the best alchemy grandmaster on 9th Street. He made the finest pills for the Tianyi Pavilion. Now, a mysterious outsider killed Grandmaster Tianbao's disciple and issued him a challenge. How conceited the man must be. The Tianyi Pavilion was extra busy and crowded the next day. Not only the residents near 9th Street gathered there, but many cultivators from other parts of Giant God City also showed up, including people from various prominent and influential families in the city. 9th Street was acknowledged by everyone to be the largest commercial hub in Giant God City. It was also a place that was frequented the most by people from aristocratic families in the city. Needless to say, the people from the distinguished families were more or less on familiar terms with Grandmaster Tianbao. Of course, they would come on this day to watch the drama unfold. There was an elevated stage in the Tianyi Pavilion, where auctions were usually held. But it was empty on this day for Grandmaster Tianbao and Yi Futian. A lot of seats were located under the stage to accommodate auction participants. At this point, the seats were filled with cultivators who came to watch the match. Some people didn't show up in person, but had covered the entire field with divine consciousness to not miss a single detail. Even so, more cultivators swarmed in to witness the competition with their own eyes. A voice boomed at this moment. "Cabinet Master, the man just headed out." The cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion immediately walked out of a great hall and strode in the direction of the elevated stage. He was accompanied by several people who all had a stately bearing. "Have a seat," the cabinet master gestured and said to everyone. All of them were from aristocratic families in Giant God City, including a man who enjoyed the same status as the cabinet master. "Where is Grandmaster Tianbao?" someone asked. "Grandmaster Tianbao is still resting. He will come out soon," the cabinet master replied. "All right. I'm surprised that so many people came here today. This is good. Let's check out how this clown, who doesn't know his limitations, is capable of. He even dares to challenge Grandmaster Tianbao." An old man chuckled. "We need to have a drink with Grandmaster Tianbao after he takes care of this clown. I want to ask him to make a pill for me," another person said. He was here to seek favor with Grandmaster Tianbao. Most of the people came here, not only because of curiosity, but also to reinforce their relationship with Grandmaster Tianbao, and to ask him for pills, which were crucial to the youngsters and their families. "Sure," the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion said. The Grandmaster wouldn't accept this man's challenge if Lin Sheng didn't insist on saving him. He is nothing but a fool who overestimated his abilities. They couldn't kill Yi Futian when he was inside the 9th inn. It was obvious that they didn't want to fall out with Lin Sheng after all. Otherwise, a prestigious man like Grandmaster Tianbao wouldn't care to compete with Yi Futian at all, since it was utterly meaningless. However, if Grandmaster Tianbao accepted the challenge, Yi Futian would come to the Tianyi Pavilion voluntarily and have no chance to make off alive. While chatting casually, they noticed that several people who had courtly manners were mixed with the crowd. An elderly man gazed at the distinctive group, his eyes narrowed. "They are," the old man muttered. Right away, the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion and his companions looked in that direction as well. A group of young men and women, attended by several people, were standing there. They kept a low profile and seemed unfathomable. Startled, the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion stood up and was about to walk over to them. Coincidentally, one of the young men darted the cabinet master a look at the same time. He nodded slightly at the cabinet master and transmitted his voice to him. "Keep doing whatever you need to do. Don't mind us." The cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion paused for a moment and sat back down. He transmitted his voice back to the young man. "Yes, Your Highness. Please let me know if Your Highness needs anything." "Okay," the young man replied and looked away. Several people alongside the cabinet master also greeted the young man via voice transmission. They were all surprised to see people from the ancient royal family here. It seemed that the news reached rather far indeed. That being said, they might have come here simply out of curiosity. The excited crowd created a din in the Tianyi Pavilion. Far away, many cultivators cleared out a path. Bei's demonic beast was sauntering down the street, carrying a man wearing a metal mask. The man seemed extremely relaxed. Even his eyes were closed under the mask. Everyone felt that this alchemy grandmaster was exceptionally arrogant. It was as if he considered everything and everybody beneath his notice, including Grandmaster Tianbao. Such an attitude, many people were lost for words. The man didn't take Grandmaster Tianbao seriously at all. The young people who came from the ancient royal family were intrigued by Yi Futian. They came out to watch the fun after learning about the eccentric alchemy grandmaster, who was staying on 9th Street. He appeared to an interesting man indeed, but his alchemy skills were unclear. Yi Futian and Bei strolled down the street without hurry. The crowd made way for them spontaneously. Plenty of people were wondering if Yi Futian was feigning nonchalance. Yi Futian didn't open his eyes until Bei's demonic beast stopped. He shot a glance at the people in front of him. The cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion and the others were all staring at him with a cold and stern face. They didn't attack him right away only because they accepted his challenge the day before. They were men of high standing who cared about their reputation on 9th Street and wouldn't go back on their word. "Where is him?" Yi Futian asked casually. He scanned the stage and didn't see Grandmaster Tianbao. Before his voice faded, a lithe figure flew out of the great hall and landed on the stage with extraordinary grace. It was Grandmaster Tianbao. Grandmaster Tianbao darted a look at Yi Futian. He never thought that a youngster would be so impudent and audacious. Without mincing words, he said, "You really have the nerve to come. I will take your life for sure after we make the pills." "Great arrogance for an old man," Yi Futian snickered. Bei carried him forward to the stage. He jumped off and walked over to Grandmaster Tianbao. I would also like to see what kind of pills you're capable of making, and what makes you think that you can summon me at will, Yi Futian said contemptuously. Grandmaster Tianbao's eyes were filled with menace, his long beard flowing in the wind. However, he heard the cabinet master talking to him via voice transmission. Grandmaster, the ancient royal family has sent some people here. You need to take the competition seriously even if you want to kill him. All right, Grandmaster Tianbao replied. He darted a disdainful glance at Yi Futian and said, let's begin. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Grandmaster Tianbao didn't want to waste his breath on Yi Futian anymore, and jumped to start at once. Everyone knew that Grandmaster Tianbao didn't believe this to be an equal match. He was eager to finish the competition early, so he could kill Yi Futian as soon as possible. Grandmaster Tianbao didn't want to waste his breath on Yi Futian anymore, and jumped to start at once. Everyone knew that Grandmaster Tianbao didn't believe this to be an equal match. He was eager to finish the competition early, so he could kill Yi Futian as soon as possible. Grandmaster would not let Yi Futian live no matter what kind of pills he could make. Yi Futian slaughtered Grandmaster Tianbao's disciple, who went invite him over for a visit. If he could survive this unscathed, Grandmaster Tianbao would lose all prestige he had on 9th Street. Yi Futian shot Grandmaster Tianbao a contemptuous look from behind the mask. Then he stood on the opposite side and waved his hand. An alchemy cauldron appeared floating in midair. Humph, Grandmaster Tianbao snorted. Another alchemy cauldron popped up in an instant. Yi Futian and Grandmaster Tianbao stood face to face. Their cauldrons were on opposite sides. Buzz! A jet of superheated steam immediately shot out and billowed around the cauldrons. The audience near the edge of the stage felt the touch of the intense heat. Some people couldn't help but raise their arms to protect their faces from the heat. After that, they saw that the flames of the way were lit under the two alchemy cauldrons at the same time. True fire of 6 ding. The crowd sized up Grandmaster Tianbao's flames of the way. The golden flames were blazing under the cauldron and formed a brilliant pattern. Grandmaster Tianbao obtained this 9th grade imperial level flames of the way during a serendipitous encounter in his early years. It was why he had a high success rate of making 9th grade pills of the Great Path. Even though he was only at the peak of the 8th level Renhuang plane, there were only a handful of grandmasters in the alchemy circle. In addition to that, even an alchemy grandmaster couldn't always successfully make pills of the Great Path that were on a par with their cultivation level. Nevertheless, Grandmaster Tianbao's success rate of making 8th grade pills of the Great Path was higher than 90%. He could even make an effective 9th grade elixir 3 out of 10 times. The statistics were awe-inspiring. Apart from his remarkable flames of the way, it was also because Grandmaster Tianbao had extraordinary alchemy skills. Many people looked in Yi Futian's direction. His flames of the way felt unique. Strong and vigorous, they were burning as if they would never die out. On top of that, the worldly spiritual qi in the surrounding area was flowing toward his flames of the way to fuel the blaze. 5th level perfect grade, the crowd exclaimed. It confirmed the rumor that had been circulating. Grandmaster Tianbao also noticed Yi Futian's flames of the way, and began to take him more seriously. A greedy look flashed in his eyes. It seemed that he couldn't simply kill Yi Futian as he imagined. He needed to find a way to seize hold of Yi Futian's flames of the way first. While the flames of the way were burning, both Yi Futian and Grandmaster Tianbao poured herbs and other ingredients into the alchemy cauldrons, their sleeves flapping in the wind. They closed their eyes to concentrate on creating the elixir. Silence reigned over the stage. The audience was waiting quietly as well. No one dared to speak a word to disturb Grandmaster Tianbao and Yi Futian. Only the crackling sound of the flames of the way could be heard. Elixirs couldn't be made in an instant. While Yi Futian and Grandmaster Tianbao remained silent on the stage, the spectators started to talk to each other in whispers. The popping and crackling noises came from both alchemy cauldrons. That is, Someone noticed that Futian's flames of the way formed a dazzling phoenix around the alchemy cauldron. His flames of the way are so gorgeous, a person murmured. Moreover, Futian's flames of the way gave them an inexplicable feeling that it would burn for eternity. It seemed that the mysterious alchemy grandmaster was not an ordinary man indeed. No wonder he dared to provoke Grandmaster Tianbao, and even issued a direct challenge to compete against him in alchemy. This is getting interesting. Lin Sheng was also among the crowd. Although he was prominent enough to sit on the stage, he chose not to due to the conflict over Futian between him and the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion. He would rather watch the match from below. Ling Sheng was very intrigued by Futian. This mysterious alchemy grandmaster was arrogant, overbearing, and eccentric. Why did he act this way? What was his purpose? Did he want to become famous? This seemed to be a risky way to gain fame. Who do you think will win? Someone whispered under his breath. Grandmaster Tianbao, of course. He will surely do his utmost to make a 9th-grade pill of the Great Path this time. With his marvelous ability, it is very likely to be a success. This person is at a much lower cultivation level than Grandmaster Tianbao. We have to wait and see what kind of elixir he can create, one person replied. It was apparent that most people believed that Grandmaster Tianbao would win a resounding victory. Everyone was confident that Grandmaster Tianbao's elixir would be at a higher grade than Futian's. There was no suspense in that regard. The flames of the way were burning more and more intensely. Futian and Grandmaster Tianbao kept tossing new ingredients into the alchemy cauldrons. It looks like Grandmaster Tianbao is attempting to make a 9th-grade elixir. People could tell what kind of pills Grandmaster Tianbao wanted to make based on the ingredients he put in the cauldron. Of course, the ingredients Futian used were also rare and precious. He obtained several of them through trading on 9th Street. The flames of the way blazed up. As time went by, a rich aroma wafted out of the cauldron. Even though the pills were not finished yet, the fragrance was already tantalizing and intoxicating. The alchemy cauldrons were vibrating in the void, making a sizzling noise. Grandmaster Tianbao outstretched his arm and slapped on the alchemy cauldron. The cauldron instantly started to spin in front of him. The Great Path's energy currents rushed down from above as soon as he formed a seal with both hands. Much to everyone's surprise, the alchemy cauldron was devouring the power of the world. The terrifying flames of the way were licking the alchemy cauldron, and the incandescent glow of the fire illuminated the clouds. The entire sky was turned scarlet. The flames converged and lunged into the alchemy cauldron like fiery dragons. Grandmaster Tianbao is making fire elemental pills of the Great Path. It's his strong suit. Some people immediately understood what Grandmaster Tianbao was aiming for. On the other side, a faint call of the phoenix was coming out of Futian's alchemy cauldron. A translucent divine phoenix took shape and wrapped around the cauldron. Futian was emitting brilliant celestial light from his body. He looked like a heavenly deity, as wisps of sacred energy flowing from him to the cauldron. The Great Path's divine light shot into the clouds, and an extraordinary phenomenon came into view. A gigantic shadow of a phoenix appeared in the sky, as an overpowering aroma rising from the alchemy cauldron. The clanking sound inside the cauldron was becoming louder and louder as well. Judging by the extraordinary phenomenon, he is as good as Grandmaster Tianbao. A lot of people were astonished by Futian's ability. Futian kept his eyes shut behind the metal mask. He exerted all his strength and went into a state of abstraction. Unlike the conceited man everyone on 9th Street remembered, Futian looked majestic and dignified like a true master. What type of pill is he making? Someone asked. If I recall it correctly, he said he came to the 9th Street to try his luck in searching for the phoenix's marrow of 10,000 years, which is the main ingredient of some elixir. What kind of elixir? People were curious. Immortal elixir, which can bring the dead back to life. It can grow flesh and bones that will never perish. Therefore, even a dead man with a broken body can come back alive, someone said. This man always wears a mask. Could it be that he suffered an irreparable injury to his face and wants to heal it with this elixir? Seems like it's going to be over soon. The crowd gazed at the cauldrons without blinking. Grandmaster Tianbao's performance was to be expected, but Yi Futian did come as a big surprise. The mysterious alchemy grandmaster was anything but ordinary for sure. After a short time, the aroma of the elixirs finally jumped out of the alchemy cauldrons. A beam of divine light pierced the clouds and shone like a high flame. It gave a red glow to the sky above 9th Street, and even cast light upon the areas nearby. Countless people in Giant God City turned their eyes to the source of the light. The elixir is made. The audience stared at the scarlet elixir, as big as a palm taking shape in front of Grandmaster Tianbao. The flame current rushed frantically toward the dazzling elixir. The entire area was tinged with red. Divine Fire Elixir 9th grade, an expert announced. This was not the first Divine Fire Elixir made by Grandmaster Tianbao. The elixir was extremely beneficial to people who cultivated the Great Path of Fire. Consuming it could directly enhance the cultivator's flames of the way and increase his fire elemental power. In addition to that, it could temper the cultivator's body and even cleanse his spiritual soul. Grandmaster Tianbao took a brief look at the Divine Fire Elixir before putting it away. With a satisfied look on his face, he glanced at Yi Futian on the opposite side. He would love to see what Yi Futian was capable of besides boasting and swaggering. At this moment, rays of blinding divine light shone out of Yi Futian's alchemy cauldron. An elixir emerged immediately after that. Furthermore, an enormous shadow of a phoenix also appeared in the void, as if it was greeting the elixir. The elixir rose high in the sky and was caught by the phoenix. Instantly, the will of the Great Path of Life filled the space. Everyone on 9th Street felt more energetic. It was as though they had been recharged. Ugh! Such a powerful pill. Yi Futian's elixir was as good as Grandmaster Tianbao's, if not better. A perfect 6th grade pill of the Great Path. Impressive. Lin Sheng expressed his approval. This pill may be even more effective than the 9th grade one. Besides, it is probably more helpful for cultivators below the 9th level. At this point, Lin Sheng finally understood why Yi Futian was so confident. This pill alone was enough to save Yi Futian's life today. Plenty of people, including Lin Sheng, would not let Yi Futian die here. This alchemy grandmaster was much more valuable than Grandmaster Tianbao. Lin Sheng would even argue that they were not at the same level at all. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2137. A Resounding Victory. Chapter 2137. A Resounding Victory. Grandmaster Tianbao stared at Yi Futian's pill with an embarrassed look on his face. He had lost the match the moment Yi Futian's pill emerged from the cauldron. They didn't need to compare the actual effects of the pills. As a 5th order Renhuang, Yi Futian created a perfect 6th grade pill of the Great Path. He had proved that he was more capable than Grandmaster Tianbao. There was no reason to drag the competition on any longer. It was safe to say that Yi Futian had won a resounding victory over Grandmaster Tianbao in this competition, that Grandmaster Tianbao was so confident of winning. Yi Futian defeated him. Grandmaster Tianbao was once the best alchemy grandmaster on 9th Street. Now he didn't deserve the title anymore. The audience was jabbering with astonishment and excitement as well. They stared at the pill, wondering if it was really so marvelous. "What kind of pill is it?" someone asked. "Nieyuan pill," a voice answered. It was an exceptionally refined young man. Startled, the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion narrowed his eyes and looked at the young man from the ancient royal family. A perfect 6th grade Nieyuan pill. It can alter a cultivator's constitution and build an extremely strong foundation of the Great Path. "Is this pill for sale?" the man asked. Yi Futian turned around and darted him a look. He paid attention to the young man's sophisticated manner and immediately realized that he was not an ordinary spectator. Moreover, he noticed that the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion was also looking at the young man in a special way. Could it be? Thinking of that, Yi Futian raised his hand with the palm facing up. The pill flew into his hand at once. Yi Futian put it in his mouth and swallowed it. Right away, his body emitted bright light of the Great Path, an intense energy of the Great Path of Life. To everyone's surprise, he ate it himself. I'm not here today to trade pills, Yi Futian spoke calmly. He glanced at Grandmaster Tianbao and asked, Now, do you still think you can summon me as you please? Many people were swayed by Yi Futian's remark. Yi Futian had shown marvelous alchemy skills. No wonder he behaved so arrogantly. Indeed, Grandmaster Tianbao had no right to demand Yi Futian's presence. He treated Yi Futian like an ignorant child by sending Tang Chen to invite him over. Tang Chen tried to use force when Yi Futian refused to go. That was why he was killed. Now it seemed that Tang Chen's death was not unjustified at all. One might well imagine how Grandmaster Tianbao would react if Yi Futian sent someone to request his presence. You're better at putting on superior airs than making pills, Yi Futian scoffed. He scanned everyone sitting on the stage, as if he was referring to all of them, including the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion. Grandmaster Tianbao glared at Yi Futian. His eyes grew dark and threatening. All of a sudden, towering flames surrounded Grandmaster Tianbao's body as he dashed forward at lightning speed, leaving a streak of fire behind. Grandmaster Tianbao reached Yi Futian and raised his hand to strike his head. There seemed to be a blazing sun in his palm that could annihilate everything. Watch out! Lin Shun cried. No one expected that Grandmaster Tianbao would attack Yi Futian outright. The audience was dumbfounded, their eyes glued to the stage. Grandmaster Tianbao was vanquished in the alchemy competition. He couldn't bear the humiliation and chose to kill Yi Futian here and now. It was obvious that Grandmaster Tianbao was a ruthless and decisive man. Yi Futian was an outsider who had no connection in Giant God City. As long as he died, Grandmaster Tianbao would still be the best alchemy grandmaster on 9th Street. Who would give offense to him over a dead man? All the problems would be solved once Grandmaster Tianbao killed Yi Futian. Yi Futian remained expressionless when he saw Grandmaster Tianbao coming. An 8th Order Renhuang, Grandmaster Tianbao was heading for a fall due to his overconfidence. A bundle of frightening energy burst out of Yi Futian's body. He raised his hand and dashed it against Grandmaster Tianbao's. Two distinctly different types of energy met head-on. Bang! With a deafening noise, the terrifying shock wave traveled outward and reached the audience under the stage. Many people hurried to release their power to protect themselves. Nevertheless, there were still plenty of spectators who were blown away by the shock wave and suffered serious injuries. It was a scene of utter chaos. Stronger cultivators bore up against the shock wave and stared at the battlefield on the elevated stage. Yi Futian was standing firm instead of being incinerated by Grandmaster Tianbao's attack, as people expected. When their hands touched, Grandmaster Tianbao felt two completely opposite types of the purest form of destructive energy rushing into his arm. What kind of power was that? Grandmaster Tianbao was disconcerted. He was flung away, and his arm was injured so badly that he thought it was about to fall off. The horrifying energy surged into his body and attacked his spiritual soul. He felt that two distinctly different types of power were consuming him. Grandmaster Tianbao uttered a low moan, his face as white as a sheet. A trickle of blood was dripping down his chin from his mouth. He lifted his head and glared at Yi Futian. Somehow he was wounded during the blitz attack he launched against Yi Futian. Yi Futian also took a few steps back. He raised his head, darted a contemptuous look at Grandmaster Tianbao, and ridiculed. A puny man like you dared to make a sneak attack on me. How laughable. You probably can't win against me even in a fair fight. You're not a match for me at either alchemy or cultivation, and you don't deserve to compete against me. The audience became even more astonished. Who would have thought that Yi Futian also possessed impressive strength and fighting ability? No one had even imagined that the arrogant and mysterious alchemy grandmaster would be so dangerous and formidable. Even the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion began to waver at this point. What Grandmaster Tianbao did just now was beneath his status. On the other hand, Yi Futian had displayed better potential in both cultivation and alchemy. He was already much more valuable than Grandmaster Tianbao. It was beyond imagination how much profit he could bring in the future, if the Tianyi Pavilion could recruit him. Besides, it was probably impossible for the cabinet master to kill Yi Futian now. If he launched an attack, There was no doubt that someone would step up to protect Yi Futian, to forge a friendship with him. He would be doing everyone else a favor. As the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion, he was well capable of assessing the situation. Having said that, it was not appropriate for him to speak at this moment, since he might affront Grandmaster Tianbao. Wonderful, Lin Sheng said. What an amazing alchemy grandmaster you are. So can we all agree that Grandmaster Tianbao was in the wrong before for being reckless and thoughtless? Grandmaster Tianbao disrespected Yi Futian by sending his disciple to bring him to the Tianyi Pavilion. It was reckless and thoughtless for sure. However, at that time, no one knew that Yi Futian was such a mighty figure. Right before this match, many people firmly believed that Yi Futian would lose the challenge, and even his life to Grandmaster Tianbao on the stage. What about now? Everyone knew clearly that nothing would happen to Yi Futian now. Instead, a lot of people on 9th Street would scramble to associate themselves with Yi Futian and win his friendship. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2138, New Friends. Chapter 2138. New Friends. Grandmaster Tianbao was too ashamed to stay on the stage any longer. He flapped his sleeves and was about to turn around and leave. Grandmaster Tianbao, are you going to leave without an apology? Lin Sheng said with a snicker. He was not afraid of offending Grandmaster Tianbao, who worked for the Tianyi Pavilion and had no interests coinciding with him. That's right. Tang Chun was merely a disciple of Grandmaster Tianbao. Yet he dared to use violence against this master to force him to come to the Tianyi Pavilion. He was way out of the line. In addition to that, Grandmaster Tianbao attempted to murder this master just now. It's not right to take off like this, someone else said. He was a powerful cultivator who had some bad blood with the Tianyi Pavilion, which was why he spoke up in a sarcastic tone. That's enough. Both sides are in the wrong for being thoughtless and inconsiderate. This is simply a misunderstanding. That's all for this matter, the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion declared. Although he was on the same side as Grandmaster Tianbao, he didn't dare to come down on Yi Futian right this moment. He couldn't recklessly affront Yi Futian, who had just proven his strength to everyone at the scene. He had to bear in mind that the cultivators from the ancient royal family were also present. They witnessed everything and might want to rope Yi Futian in. After all, Yi Futian was an alchemy grandmaster with limitless potential. In the meantime, he needed to save Grandmaster Tianbao's face, which was why he wanted to put an end to this matter as soon as possible. Misunderstanding, Yi Futian said in a mocking tone. You didn't show any civility or respect when you went to capture me yesterday. I'm afraid that I would be killed by you immediately if I didn't stand my ground. Even though there isn't much I can do right now, rest assured that I will never forget about it. We can settle the scores later, if you can't account for your behavior. Yi Futian's aggressive scolding put an uncomfortable look on the cabinet master's face. However, other people around were secretly enjoying the drama. The Tianyi Pavilion suffered a major setback this time. Being resented by such an extraordinary alchemy grandmaster was not a trivial matter. Apart from his amazing alchemy skills, Yi Futian was bound to become a better cultivator than the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion sooner or later. This arrogant alchemy grandmaster was as domineering as usual. He insisted on explanations for the actions of the Tianyi Pavilion. The cabinet master stared at Yi Futian with a grim face. He said, "What do you want me to do? Do you need to ask me?" Even though Yi Futian was wearing a mask, his unflinching gaze was making the cabinet master feel very uneasy. The cabinet master was tongue-tied. An awkward silence followed. Everyone understood that the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion was unable to extricate himself from this difficult situation. If he took a stand against Yi Futian, the ill feelings between them would only become worse. But if he gave in, he would lose respect from others. On top of that, what should he do with Grandmaster Tianbao? Could he ask Grandmaster Tianbao to leave the Tianyi Pavilion? It was hard for him to make up his mind to lose an alchemy grandmaster. Yi Futian showed no interest in letting them off. Nevertheless, he wasn't deliberately making things difficult for the sake of the Tianyi Pavilion. In fact, he didn't care about the cabinet master of the Tianyi Pavilion or Grandmaster Tianbao at all. Not only could Yi Futian easily beat Grandmaster Tianbao in alchemy, but he could also kill him with little effort. The so-called best alchemy grandmaster on 9th Street was beneath Yi Futian's notice. Yi Futian was only causing trouble for the Tianyi Pavilion in order to make a scene and attract the attention of the ancient royal family. He speculated that the young man who spoke before was not an ordinary commoner. Therefore, he was putting on a show on purpose, rather than sincerely demanding an explanation. As the situation came to a standstill, a voice rang out. Since the Tianyi Pavilion is at fault, Cabinet Master, why don't you offer an apology? Many people were stunned by the suggestion that the Cabinet Master of the Tianyi Pavilion should apologize. Who is it? They turned around and saw that it was a young Ren Huang. He was surrounded by several people who were around the same age and carried the same stately grace. They were attended by a small group of people standing behind, making sure they have enough room in the crowded space. Who was he? The Cabinet Master of the Tianyi Pavilion darted a look at the young man. His eye twitched slightly. Then, he turned to Yi Futian with an enigmatic expression. He said, "The Tianyi Pavilion is indeed in the wrong. As the Cabinet Master, I am responsible for the mess. I am sorry for our rash and disrespectful act, and humbly ask for your forgiveness." Ugh! A lot of people in the audience were dumbfounded by the Cabinet Master's apology. They realized that the young man was not an ordinary person, and began to see him in a new light. Yi Futian was also surprised. He vaguely sensed that he might have achieved his goal. They had taken the bait. "Do you think a simple apology is enough?" Yi Futian replied coldly, as though he still didn't want to let it go. He shifted his attention to the young man and looked directly into his eyes. The young man cracked a smile and said, "Master, your alchemy performance was phenomenal. May I ask your name?" The young man, affable and unassuming, asked with extra politeness. "My last name is Qi," Yi Futian replied. "Master Qi." The young man cupped one hand in the other before his chest to show respect and said, "How should this matter be handled in your opinion? Do you have the authority to make decisions?" Yi Futian asked him tentatively. "Yes, I do." The young man nodded without hesitation. The crowd was even more intrigued now. They shifted their eyes to the Cabinet Master to see his reaction. To everyone's surprise, the Cabinet Master remained expressionless and apparently acquiesced to the young man's statement. The young man really could make decisions and tell the Cabinet Master what to do. Who had this kind of power on 9th Street? No one. The Cabinet Master of the Tianyi Pavilion was already at the top of the food chain. No one could order him around, unless an idea popped into many people's heads and filled them with astonishment. Did people from that place come to 9th Street as well? It seems that you're not an average man. In that case, Yi Futian gazed at the young man and said, "I want the phoenix's marrow of 10,000 years. If you can get that for me, I will forget about what happened today, and even offer other things to trade." The young man was stunned for a moment upon hearing Yi Futian's request. Then he laughed. "Master Qi, you certainly didn't hold back. I'm afraid that you overestimated me." He was aware that Yi Futian figured out his identity and tried to take advantage of him. Nonetheless, the phoenix's marrow of 10,000 years was not a common ingredient. Even he had to put in some effort to obtain it. It was not as simple as it sounded. "So can you get it?" Yi Futian asked. "We can try," a female Renhuang next to the young man answered. She had been quietly watching the situation and only chimed in now. No one dared to act frivolously in front of her for her breathtaking beauty and dignified manner. "How confident are you?" Yi Futian looked at her and asked. "We will give it a shot, but can't make any promises," she replied. The young man nodded with a smile and echoed, "That's right. We can do our best. But the phoenix's marrow of 10,000 years is not an ordinary object. It will take some time." "Okay. I will let them off the hook if you can give me your word," said Yi Futian. The crowd looked at him. It was clear that he came to 9th Street specifically to acquire the phoenix's marrow of 10,000 years. "Good. If we can find it, Master, we don't need anything else in return. All we want is to become your friends, the young man said with a carefree smile, as though something as precious as the phoenix's marrow of 10,000 years was nothing but a tool for him to forge friendships. No problem, Futian replied. Let's talk on the way. All right. Please. The young man outstretched his arm to show the way. Futian nodded, walked to the edge of the stage, and climbed onto Bai's demonic beast. Bais carried Futian and sauntered away. The crowd spontaneously made way for him to walk on. Watching Futian's receding figure, everyone understood that he was another prominent figure rising from 9th Street, where he was only staying temporarily. Now that the ancient royal family had entered into the picture, they would probably recruit him. They would have never thought that Futian was here exactly for the ancient royal family. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. At the 9th Inn, Lin Qing personally hosted a banquet in honor of Futian and the visitors from the ancient royal family of Duan. At the 9th Inn, Lin Qing personally hosted a banquet in honor of Futian and the visitors from the ancient royal family of Duan. Many cultivators in the inn were paying attention to this meeting. They had guessed where the group of people came from, and now, all of 9th Street was closely watching their interactions. At the banquet, Lin Qing personally poured wine for the young couple who sat in the main seats. Futian didn't know how to address them, but heard the young man smile and said, I think Master Qi must have guessed a thing or two, so Elder doesn't need to hide it. Lin Qing smiled and nodded. He gestured with his hand and said politely, Your Highness, please. The young man nodded with a smile and cast a glance at Futian. As expected, Futian's expression remained steady. The master must have already guessed who we are. Tianyi Pavilion is the #1 trading pavilion on 9th Street, and both of you were able to command the pavilion master of Tianyi Pavilion. Who else could you be other than the cultivators from the ancient royal family? But of course, I have no idea as to your actual identities. Futian didn't continue with his pompous facade. Facing those from the ancient royal family, it would be preposterous for him to continue with this act. On Giant God's continent, the ancient royal family of Duan was a peak existence. No matter how powerful an alchemy grandmaster might be, his status would not be higher than that of the man in front of him. I am Duan Yi, and this is my sister Duan Shang, and we are members of the ancient royal family. The young man introduced themselves to Futian, looking very polite and courteous, without the hubris of being a descendant of the Duan family. The ancient royal family of Duan had many descendants, and the competitions were fierce among them. Of course, what they were pursuing was not power but cultivation. In the cultivating world, power was determined by cultivation level, and a powerful alchemy grandmaster could provide great benefits to cultivation, thus, a subject for recruitment. Therefore, Duan Yi had displayed enough respect toward Futian, without the slightest exhibition of superiority. Your Highnesses, Futian bowed slightly with his hands together. They came from the ancient royal family, and had the surname of Duan. Their identities were beyond doubt. Now that he had come into contact with the prince and princess of the ancient royal family, his plan was halfway there. He could even take them down right now, but it would be complicated. Moreover, he wouldn't get away easily because he still needed assistance from old Ma. The most important part of the plan was to tease out important figures from the ancient royal family. Now that Duan Yi and Duan Shang were right in front of him, his plan was on track, as long as there were no unexpected events. Master is overly courteous. Duan Yi waved his hand and said, Master's alchemy technique is so outstanding that it's unfathomable we have never heard of your name before. Where is the master cultivating? I'm not a cultivator of the Giant God's continent, and have been traveling around the Shangqing domain in search of medicinal plants, and to practice alchemy. Now that my alchemy technique has gotten better, I came to the Giant God's city for some hard-to-find materials, Futian replied. No wonder. Duan Yi nodded. It is true that only the main continent of the upper 9 heavens has the possibility of finding phoenix marrow of 10,000 years. Is the master intent on making the immortal elixir? So your highness is aware. Yi Futian looked at the other. This immortal elixir is said to be capable of life and death, as well as growing flesh from scratch, a truly divine potion. I heard from the elders in the palace that the phoenix marrow of 10,000 years is its main medicinal ingredient. Why is the master so eager for the immortal elixir? Duani asked again. I have been seriously injured before, which left a major defect in my great path. So I require the immortal elixir. Yi Futian turned his eyes to look at other places. Duani looked at Yi Futian's face and said understandingly, I am too nosy. Let me drink up as an apology. As he finished speaking, he drained the content of the cup by himself. No worries, your highness, Yi Futian said. The master is outstanding in both alchemy and cultivation. I am curious as to who had the pleasure of calling you their disciple. Duan Shang regarded Yi Futian with her beautiful eyes and asked. Duani raised his brows slightly. This was also the question he wanted to ask, but it was better for Duan Shang to pose it. It was hardly possible for such a formidable character to cultivate independently. There were not many like him in all of the giant gods continent. In addition to his excellent alchemical ability, his great path of cultivation was also flawless. If Yi Futian had a master, the person must be someone extremely eminent, and it was possible that they would have heard of the person too. Yi Futian directed his gaze at Duan Shang. Under the stare of those eyes peeking out beneath the mask, Duan Shang felt an invisible pressure. Yi Futian's eyes seemed to be bottomless, as vast as a starry sky. Duan Shang had a feeling that this grandmaster must not be very advanced in age. My master prefers peace and quiet without being disturbed. He instructed me that I may only reveal his identity to extremely close confidants, and to bring them to see him. Yi Futian replied pleasantly. Duan Shang was a little stunned, and she then avoided Yi Futian's eyes after that. His explanation seemed reasonable, but why was it that she felt something was out of place? However, many hermits cultivated in seclusion. Perhaps, Yi Futian's master was one of them, which was not entirely surprising. If so, we won't inquire further. Duani said, Is the master comfortable staying here? If you came to the palace as our guest, it would allow us to host the master properly. That's quite all right. This inn is pretty good, and Elder Lin is taking good care of me. Yi Futian responded with a smile, and thought that there was no way he would go to the palace. If he did, he would be under their control. All right then. After I get back, I will search for the phoenix marrow of 10,000 years for the master. Duani didn't skip a beat. Although Yi Futian had pulled back in his swagger, the arrogance in his bones was still there. Even with them, there was not the slightest hint of fawning. It was as if their status as prince and princess was not enough for him to lower himself in any way. But because of this, Duani felt that Yi Futian was more than what met the eye, and perhaps his master was really someone even more prestigious, which would explain his confidence. They chatted for a while longer before Duan Yi and Duan Shang bid their farewell. When they left, Yi Futian added, Even if the phoenix marrow of 10,000 years cannot be found, please be sure to send word, so that if I leave, I will have a chance to say goodbye to your highness. The two nodded slightly as Yi Futian's eyes fell on Duan Shang, making her feel a little peculiar. No problem. Even if we don't find it, we will visit the master soon, Duani replied. Since we are friends, no need to be so formal. If your highness doesn't think I am being too bold, perhaps you may address me as Brother Qi, Yi Futian continued. If Brother Qi doesn't mind, it is the best. Duani smiled heartily. If so, we will visit Brother Qi again tomorrow. Very well. Yi Futian nodded. Goodbye, Brother Duan and Princess Shang. The two left, and headed towards the palace. Duani smiled and said, Master Qi is quite interesting. He calls me Brother Duan, but addressed you as Princess Shang. His way of talking was quite amusing. Duan Shang's expression was cold when she said, I feel this man was a little unusual. Indeed. Duani nodded. Such a powerful alchemy grandmaster is unfathomable. If he wanted, he could go to any top principalities. I wonder if he has wanted anything else other than the phoenix marrow of 10,000 years. Duan Shang acknowledged. It's fine. We'll have to investigate him a little more, Duani said. He smiled and told the person behind him. After we get back, send a few cultivators of the 9th realm from the palace to 9th Street. Remember to tell them to act normally, and don't do anything. Just be ready for our orders. Yes, Your Highness. The man behind him nodded. I'm curious about where this master really comes from, Duani said with a smile. He had completely lost the friendly and insouciant guise that he wore when he was with Yi Futian. He seemed calculating. In the 9th inn, Yi Futian returned to his room after the others had left. He closed the door and took out the communication device as a divine consciousness shot into it, transmitting a message. After he sent out the message, a light lit up from the device as the response was transmitted back. Yi Futian put away the device, then closed his eyes to meditate. He must act quickly this time, and they couldn't afford any delays that would give way to unforeseen changes. If he was careless, failure was all but certain. On this day, a major event concerning the ancient royal family of Duan occurred in the giant god city. The envoy from Four Corner Village arrived at the ancient royal family and demanded the release of their people. Just recently, news from Four Corner Village had spread to Giant God's continent, and many powerful figures in Giant God's city had heard about it by now. The presence of the envoy from Four Corner Village caused quite a stir. After Zhang Yi arrived at the palace, he was not received by the overlord of the ancient royal family. Instead, a prince met with him, and as expected, did not agree to hand over the hostages. However, Zhang Yi was allowed to see Feng Gai and his son to ensure their well-being. It was obvious that they just wanted the divine techniques, which Feng Gai refused to give up. As long as they could get their hands on the divine techniques, they would release the hostages. Zhang Yi proposed to communicate with Four Corner Village and settled down in the palace. At the same time, he sent back the latest information, which was also shared with Yi Futian. He was relieved to know that Feng Gai and his son were still alive and well, although this was expected. Next, it all hinged on his plan. In a way, Zhang Yi would be facing some danger, but nothing would happen to Zhang Yi as long as the plan succeeded. Yi Futian continued making panacea in the inn. Many from 9th Street requested to see him, but Yi Futian had declined all such requests. Those who wanted to see him had no choice but to leave, unaware that Yi Futian's refusal to meet with them was his attempt of not getting anyone else in trouble later on. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yi Futian had been waiting quietly in the inn. The next day, Duan Yi and Duan Shang arrived as promised, and came to the 9th inn to see Yi Futian. Yi Futian had sensed their arrival, and immediately sent out a message. He then walked out of his room to meet Duan Yi and Duan Shang. He smiled and greeted them. Brother Duan. Princess Shang. Brother Qi. Duan Yi and his people landed in the courtyard, as he smiled and said to Yi Futian, After I went back yesterday, I made some inquiries, and we came here to share some good news with Brother Qi. Oh. Yi Futian looked at Duan Yi and prompted. The treasure was found in the palace? Duan Yi smiled and nodded. Yi Futian thought that the ancient royal family was indeed plentiful in resources. Precious things as the phoenix marrow of 10,000 years could be found there. Should he accept it or not? Of course, Yi Futian remained calm on the outside as he looked at Duan Yi with a smile on his face. Brother Duan has been working hard at my behest. If there is anything Brother Duan requires of me, I will gladly be of service. No need. Duan Yi dismissed the notion with a wave of his hand and spoke very heartily. I have said before that there is no need for Brother Qi to do anything in exchange. Yi Futian nodded, thinking that Duan Yi seemed quite decisive in this initial contact. At least, that was what it appeared to be so far. As to whether he had any ulterior motives, it was something yet to be seen. At their level, it would be difficult to know if he had deliberately camouflaged his true intentions or not. But, at this moment, Duan Yi stopped as if considering how to phrase this next sentence. Yi Futian saw that the other had paused, so he asked, Is there a problem? No. Duani shook his head. There is an alchemy grandmaster in our palace. I don't know if Brother Qi has heard of it. I heard something about that here. Yi Futian nodded. This phoenix marrow of 10,000 years belongs to this grandmaster. After I explain the situation, this grandmaster is willing to give it to Brother Qi. If Brother Qi needs assistance in refining the immortal elixir, he is also willing to help. Therefore, this master would like to invite Brother Qi to the palace and hand over the phoenix marrow to you and conduct the process together to lend a hand to Brother Qi. Duani said, What do you think? Yi Futian was taken aback as he didn't expect Duan-yi to make such a request and asked him to go to the palace. The eyes under the mask looked at Duan-yi. At this moment, he felt that Duan-yi was not as simple as he appeared. Here at the inn, he had some subjectivity regarding his own movements. If he were to go to the palace, he would be in a completely passive situation, and it was not an overstatement to say that his life and death would be in Duan-yi's hands. He was invited to the palace to get what he asked for, which was an interesting strategy, but the outward reason was impeccable. They were helping him, and were even willing to assist him in his endeavor. For a moment, Yi Futian didn't know quite how to respond, to agree or to refuse. Now he needed some time. It was definitely impossible for him to go. But if he refused, everything he said previously would appear a bit hypocritical and full of holes. I know the reason why Brother Qi desires the immortal elixir, so I thought nothing of it when I agreed our grandmaster's offer to assist on behalf of Brother Qi. Rest assured that once the immortal elixir is made, absolutely no one would take it for his own, as it is promised to Brother Qi. As a member of the ancient royal family, I Duan-yi can make this guarantee. Duan-yi said openly. Everyone in the inn must have heard it as well. Brother Qi need not worry about unforeseeable events. Brother Duan overthinks the matter. This here is the giant god city. If Brother Duan wanted to do anything at all, there is no need to go about it with such efforts. Yi Futian said with a smile. No problem, I will go with your highness. Duan-yi had blocked any possible excuses from him with a few words. He could only acquiesce for the time being. He was beginning to realize that this man was anything but simple, quite contrary to what he had imagined before. It seemed that he had misjudged Duan-yi. The prince of the ancient royal family could not be a simpleton after all. Then, thanks to Brother Qi and our grandmaster, it seems that we will have the opportunity to witness the making of the immortal elixir. Duan-yi smiled and continued. This legendary elixir is said to be able to raise the dead and grow flesh from bones. But I've never seen such a thing before. I wonder how amazing it would be. Brother Qi, this way please, Duan-yi said with a smile. As long as Yi Futian went to the palace, he would find a way to keep him there. By then, everything about Yi Futian would be thoroughly investigated and revealed. Just a minute, I have to wait for someone. Yi Futian said. Brother Duan, let's sit here while we wait. Waiting for someone? Duan-yi looked at Yi Futian with some doubts. Didn't Brother Qi come here alone? Who are you waiting for? An old friend had made an appointment to meet me here. After he arrives, Brother Duan will know who he is. Yi Futian responded with a smile. Very well, Duan-yi nodded. Yi Futian had agreed to go to the palace readily enough, so he couldn't very well refuse Yi Futian's request. A few more moments of waiting couldn't possibly do any harm. As long as Yi Futian was there, he couldn't believe that this talented alchemy grandmaster would escape him. This alchemy master must serve him, or else it would be meaningless. The two chatted in the yard. Both Duan-yi and Duan-shang were very curious about the person Yi Futian was waiting for. However, as Yi Futian did not wish to reveal the person's identity, Duan-yi was hard-pressed to inquire further. At this time, Duan-shang asked, Is the person we are waiting for also an alchemy master? No. Yi Futian shook his head and said, This elder is not an expert in alchemy. Brother Qi's elders? Duan-shang said. Yi Futian nodded. Someone from your clan? Duan-shang continued to probe. Yi Futian looked at her with a smile and replied, Is your highness really that curious about matters relating to me? Duan-shang looked at those eyes under the mask, her eyes cast to the side slightly, and said, I'm just curious as to who is worthy enough for the master to wait here. So I wanted to know who this person might be. Patience, princess. Your highness will know when he arrives, Futian responded. People chatted casually around them, but Futian keenly sensed that many were focusing their attention at the inn. Yesterday, he had caused quite some commotions on 9th Street, so it was normal that he attracted their attention. However, this time he felt a little different. It was as if someone was monitoring their movements. Perhaps it was because Duani was here? However, whatever the reason might be, it no longer mattered. As a precaution, Old Ma had been staying just outside the city. When Duan and the others arrived, he had sent a message, and Old Ma should be on his way over. Old Ma's cultivation was more than enough for him to reach Futian quickly, but before they could execute their plan, he didn't want to attract unnecessary attention. At this time, inside Giant God's city, Old Ma had restrained his aura. Just as when Futian had first seen him, there was nothing that could be detected from him at all. Even around his body, there was not the slightest indication of his actual strength. But when he paced casually, he was able to traverse the void. Many people in Giant God's city expressed a surprised look where Old Ma had passed. They turned their heads to take a look. They had sensed someone passing by. It was as if it was someone quite ordinary, but all they saw was a shadow. It was a strange feeling. It seemed a little unreal, but it really happened. Although Old Ma did not employ a great force in his travel, he was still speedy nonetheless. It didn't take him long to arrive outside of 9th Street. A sweep of his divine consciousness revealed Futian's location. He commanded, "Take them down." At this time, Old Ma's voice was heard in Futian's mind as he was chatting with Duan and Duan Shang. His eyes darted and saw that Duan Yi's expression had changed ever so slightly. "Is something the matter, Brother Qi?" Duan Yi asked when he saw the expression in Futian's eyes. Suddenly, he had a bizarre feeling, as if he sensed an inexplicable danger. However, as to where the danger was coming from he couldn't say. Would it have something to do with them waiting here? However, on 9th Street in Giant God City, what could happen to them? Unless, Duan Yi looked at Futian, and his eyes suddenly became solemn, with a faint sense of caution. He asked, "The person Brother Qi is waiting for is here?" "He's here." Futian nodded. "I would trouble your highness to come with me." As he finished speaking, a powerful aura of the Great Path immediately shrouded this area, sealed shut by an overwhelming power of space. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2141. Can't Get Away. Chapter 2141. Can't Get Away. Duan and Duan Shang's expressions changed to shock as the aura of the Great Path exploded out from them. However, the tyrannical force of the spatial power had sealed the void tightly, making it difficult for them to move. At the same time, countless branches and leaves appeared in this space, wrapping around them until they were well tucked within. Boom! An extremely violent aura was released from the two of them, as they levitated into the air, wanting to rush forth. Behind them, and at several different positions on 9th Street, other tyrannical auras also exploded, and a few of them was a Run Huang of the 9th Realm. The nearest person was right behind Duan and Duan Shang. That 9th Realm cultivator raised his hand to grab Futian, turning the space into a prison, hovering around Futian. All around them, the streaming light of the Great Path circulated. That prison of the Great Path was extremely secure, and made a roaring sound. However, a brilliant burst of divine glory now exploded upon Futian's body, as his eyes became quite demonic. A massive illusion of the peacock appeared, and shot out a terrifying light of 7 colors. Futian's body turned into a flash of lightning. It hit the prison with a blast, causing the prison to shatter and collapse. But at this moment, many Ren Huang descended in his area at the same time. Their aura of the Great Path was frightening. Boom! A suppressive pressure of the Great Path enveloped this corner of the world. This vast world seemed to have transformed into a world of a starry sky, giant stone tablets coming to suppress this space. Both Duan and Duan Shang were cultivators of the ancient royal family, with extraordinary talents and strong cultivation. But at this moment, facing Yi Futian, they felt that they were tiny in comparison. It was as if they had no ability to fight back. They realized now that the flaming ability Yi Futian exhibited before was just one of his many abilities, and it was a relatively minor one. He could even battle the cultivators in the 9th realm. This meant that Yi Futian didn't need to fear any cultivators on the 9th street, including the pavilion master of Tianyi Pavilion, which explained his audacity. His own strength dictated that he need not fear anyone he encountered. Who are you? The vast space seemed to turn into Yi Futian's field of the Great Path. Duan Yi and Duan Shang found that though their cultivation was not lower than that of Yi Futian, it seemed impossible for them to contend with him. Yi Futian's figure flashed and appeared in front of them. "Careful, Your Highness," someone cried out. But they were too close, and Duan Yi and Duan Shang's movements were restricted. Yi Futian reached out, and in one fell swoop, both of them were restrained, and their bodies rose into the sky with him. Other Renhuang wanted to stop them, but an old man appeared high in the sky as a supreme coercion enveloped this corner of the world. Suddenly, everyone on 9th Street seemed to feel the might of heaven as their bodies trembled slightly. The man was Old Ma. At this moment, he exposed his whereabouts to help Yi Futian to escape. In the area above Old Ma, a huge spatial door appeared, from which a terrible spatial power surged out. The space door seemed to open up to another place. It seemed that once walked through it, one might disappear into a completely different world. If visitors from Four Corner Village have already arrived, why not come to my palace, so I may fulfill my duty as the host? When the voice fell, the entire giant god city seemed to have changed as a terrifying force now spreading from the city. It was only at this moment did the people in Giant God City realize that people from Four Corner Village had arrived. This meant that whoever had gone to the palace for negotiation was just a ruse. Four Corner Village had other plans at work. The people on the 9th Street were even more shocked to find this arrogant alchemy grandmaster with mighty strength had come from Four Corner Village, and his alchemy techniques were unbelievably outstanding. Yi Futian felt that he was unable to move another muscle. Old Ma wanted to lead him into the spatial door, but at this moment, the entire giant god city was illuminated by a terrifying divine light. An incomparable sacred power now shrouded the entire city, and everyone's body became extremely heavy, like statues glued to the ground. They could hardly move even half a step, and Yi Futian was no different. Boom! With a loud bang, the spatial door was shattered by an attack. Old Ma took Yi Futian up to a higher part of the sky, but saw that in the area above Giant God City, a gigantic godlike figure was there in the direction of the imperial palace. The overlord. Countless cultivators in the Giant God City had no idea what had happened. Upon hearing the voice of the overlord, they gathered that something was afoot. Their hearts trembled as they saw his face from afar. This was the master of the Giant God's continent, the overlord of the ancient royal family of Duan. I've heard that there is a being in the village not often seen. No one even knew that he could cultivate. But he has, in fact, broken the shackles and created his own great path. I am pleased to finally meet you today, the overlord of the Duan family said. He had clearly guessed Old Ma's identity. Four Corner Village has never harmed the ancient royal family of Duan. But your excellency has seized our people from Four Corner Village to pilfer our divine techniques. It is not behavior befitting of your position, replied Old Ma. The divine light emitted from him had covered Yi Futian and the others. Even though they weren't able to leave, the prince and princess of the ancient royal family of Duan were under their direct control. Four Corner Village was not part of the cultivating world before, and there were only a few who had left. According to the village rules, once they left, they were no longer part of the village. Feng Huan killed a member of the ancient royal family, so we captured him. It just so happened that the Four Corner Village was entering the cultivating world around the same time that I decided to spare his life by exchanging it for the divine techniques. If Four Corner Village disagrees, I will not force the matter, the overlord said. Of course, these were all words from the other side, and there was no way to know whether they were true or not. No one knew if Feng Huan had really done what they said he did, but there were definitely some conflicts. In any case, there was no doubt that the Duan family coveted the divine techniques of Four Corner Village. Otherwise, they didn't need to hatch these devious plans, including sending a letter to lure Feng Gai into their lair and try to procure the divine techniques. Unfortunately, it had not succeeded thus far. Now that Your Excellency also has hostages in our hands, the divine techniques are no longer on the table for exchange, said Old Ma. However, the man only smiled and continued, even if your cultivation is extraordinary, you can't walk out of this city. If you want the two of them, it is difficult to say whether you two could get out of this bind at all. Old Ma looked down and saw a majestic aura of the great path permeating out of the vast giant god city, a great power dragging on the space above, so that even he was affected. Other cultivators from the giant god city, and Yi Futian, found it was extremely difficult for them to move. Are there divine items sealed beneath the city? Old Ma looked at the overlord of Duan in the distance and asked. This city itself is a divine item. The other responded. It's useless to threaten me with the two of them. Four Corner Village just entered the world. I don't think you want to take any risks. As Old Ma stared at the other, Yi Futian spoke up. Sir, the ancient royal family of Duan had threatened us with hostages taken from Four Corner Village first, and we only resorted to this measure after being pressed. It's an even exchange. If you do not care about the consequences, why should we? It is true that Four Corner Village just joined the cultivation world, but we are not afraid of anyone. As long as the teacher is there, Four Corner Village is still what it always meant to be. In the past, 3 top figures of the Shangqing domain entered Four Corner Village and recognized its existence. Although the teacher loathes matters from the outside, he would come to seek justice if he were really provoked. Then, whether or not Giant God City could survive his wrath would be anyone's guess. The teacher couldn't leave the village for special reasons, but it didn't mean that the overlord of the Duan family knew what they were. He could use this chance to feel out the stance of the other man. The ancient royal family of Duan was acting secretive before, and it must be because they didn't want the news to leak and offend Four Corner Village. They too had their concerns. The overlord of the Duan family looked at Yi Futian and said, You are the one who is rumored to have come from the Donghua domain to cultivate. Indeed, I am, Yi Futian nodded. I heard that you have extraordinary talent, and not someone native from the village. You possess great luck that allowed you to control the divine techniques of the village. You even drove out the original leader of the village. Your name is known throughout the Donghua domain. Even the domain chief's manor was hunting you. Now you are here again to intercept my kin. You are indeed a rare animal, Duan Tianxiong from the Duan family said loudly. And everyone finally realized just how legendary this alchemy grandmaster truly was. The overlord gives me too much praise. Yi Futian took off the mask, revealing a strangely handsome face. His long silver hair moved with the wind, and his appearance surprised many. This genius alchemy grandmaster had turned out to be such an enchanting figure. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Duan Tianxiong looked at Yi Futian and said with a smile, Duan Yi, Duan Shang, though you are the prince and princess of the family, now you know firsthand that there are always those who excel even the best of them. You are the same age, but the gap between you is so vast, so that you too have become the hostages in the hands of others. Duan Tianxiong looked at Yi Futian and said with a smile, Duan Yi, Duan Shang, though you are the prince and princess of the family, now you know firsthand that there are always those who excel even the best of them. You are the same age, but the gap between you is so vast, so that you too have become the hostages in the hands of others. Duan Yi and Duan Shang looked at Yi Futian at a loss. When they heard Duan Tianxiong's words, they were ashamed. Indeed, there was a huge gap between them and Yi Futian. It could be said that they were not even on the same level as Yi Futian, or they would not have fallen into his clutches. Whenever you two have returned home, you should take a good look at yourselves and think about this. Duan Tianxiong continued. As the overlord, he was truly extraordinary. Under such circumstances, he still remembered to make it a teachable moment without the slightest hint of worry for their safety. He was a true leader. He turned his attention back at Yi Futian again. He said with a smile, Domain Chief Ning Yuan of Donghua Domain didn't promote a genius talent like you, but put you on the most wanted list instead. I have no idea what he was thinking when he did that. If it were me, I certainly would not have done that. Aside from the turmoil Yi Futian caused in the Shangqing domain, his undertaking in the Four-Corner Village alone was enough to surprise everyone. Now that he had taken 2 of his descendants into his hands as hostages, while revealing himself as an outstanding alchemy grandmaster, the sky was the limit for such a man, and too terrifying to contemplate where he would end up. Although he did not have an influential background, he had been through various trials and experienced much in the world. He couldn't understand why the domain chief of Donghua Domain would forsake such a talented person. Since your majesty holds me in such high regard, why don't we stop right here and forge a friendship between us? The prince and her majesty may remain my friends. After all, what happened today went against my intention, as I was forced by circumstance, Yi Futian suggested to Duan Tianxiong. His goal was simple enough, save Feng Gai and Feng Huan. As for the Duan family, Four Corner Village had just joined the cultivating world, and he did not want to make them their enemy. The most important thing was to focus on their own development and get themselves established first. It was best to resolve this matter peacefully, so the 2 sides could stop this vendetta. As for the friendship he referred to, it was nothing more than diplomatic words. They both knew the reality very well, and this was to give each other a way out. I have no strong feelings about this, but what I said was not false, and I will never deceive you. Feng Huan did take the life of our kinsman. If I let him go, where is the justice for us? Duan Tianxiong said to Yi Futian. Yi Futian looked at the man and realized that Duan Tianxiong couldn't let bygones be bygones. The giant god city was his territory. He could easily shut down everything here so that no one could leave. Yi Futian had taken Duan Yi and Duan Shang hostage, but the real power was still in Duan Tianxiong's hands. In that case, I have a suggestion. Would your majesty care to take a listen? Said Yi Futian. Yes, Duan Tianxiong replied from the air. I will go to the palace alone for our people. Your majesty as the judge will not interfere. If no one can stop me without employing divine items that will restrict my mobility, I will take our people away with me. If anyone can intercept me, I will leave your people to you and the divine techniques. What does your majesty think? Yi Futian looked at Duan Tianxiong from across the sky and said loudly and clearly. Everyone was shocked. Countless people looked up at that handsome and exceptional figure. His silver hair was flying in the wind, and he exuded an air of indescribable self-confidence and insolence. Even Duan Yi and Duan Shang, who was taken by him, now looked at Yi Futian in shock. The man without the mask was even more audacious and daring. Never mind the 9th Street or Giant God City, even the cultivators from the ancient royal family of Duan were not taken seriously by him. He wanted to rush the palace and take his people away. It was a bold proposition. Yi Futian's proposition was based on some of the things that he found out before. In the royal palace of the Duan family, there was no upper Runhuang with perfect great path like Ninghua. People at that level of cultivation posed the most threat to him. Without this type of cultivator, even if they were in the 9th realm, he had the power to combat them. Now the 2 sides were at the point of no return. If he won, he might take his people away. If he lost, they would need to hand over the divine techniques. You mean, you want to rush the ancient imperial palace by yourself? Even Duan Tianxiong's voice was slightly perturbed. A cultivator of Runhuang 5th realm wanted to break into the ancient royal family of Duan. How insolent! Did he really think that no one from the ancient royal family could stop him? Yes, replied Yi Futian. It was just one word, yet it was sonorous and determined. Even old Ma had to take a second look at him. This guy, rushing the palace by himself, was pure madness to say the least. The Duan family was a major force in the middle 3rd heavens. It held the most esteem, because Duan Tianxiong had the true strength to dominate the area. However, the ancient royal family of Duan had no lack of powerful cultivators, and there must be countless of them inside the palace, including some old monsters in the ninth realms. Futian, it's too risky. Old Ma transmitted his voice to Yi Futian. Old Ma, there is no better option than this. Even if we fail, it will only be paying the price of the divine techniques. Would you say Uncle Fong is not worth it? Yi Futian explained. Old Ma had no reply. When they were at the village, he had known that Yi Futian was a person who cared about the others, or else he would never have felt so close to him. He even went so far as to push him to become the village chief of Four Corner Village. However, his proposition encountered some resistance because Yi Futian was still inexperienced. After all, he was an outsider before, not someone who was native to the village. However, Old Ma had to admit that Yi Futian was right. The only way was to give it their best shot, for there were no other options. Well, if you are sure, I will indulge you, Duan Tianxiong said. I'll be waiting for you here. Yi Futian looked at Duan Yi and Duan Shang. I would ask your two majesties to bear with us for a while longer. He then handed the two of them over to Old Ma. Old Ma looked at him, still hesitating. Yi Futian's entry into the ancient royal family meant that he would be completely within their control once he set foot there. Don't worry, as the overlord, he will not go back on what he promised. Yi Futian knew just what made Old Ma so worried, so he tried to assure him. Old Ma nodded slightly. Duan Tianxiong had agreed to Yi Futian's request for a battle in front of everyone. He would see that the agreement was honored. I'll go with you, Old Ma said, leading Yi Futian in the direction of the ancient royal palace of the Duan family. At this time, the light from Giant God's city gradually dimmed until it disappeared. There was terrifying pressure. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Let's go. One after another, they levitated into the air, heading in the direction of the ancient royal family. Conducting this rescue mission inside the palace of the ancient royal family by himself? He's crazy. The entire Giant God city was roiling. Countless people rushed toward the location of the ancient royal family, wanting to witness this battle. As a mere Ren Huang of the fifth realm, Yi Futian is attempting something impossible. Does he think he has the power to alter his fate and manipulate the will of heaven? Some elders with powerful cultivation commented, not at all optimistic about Yi Futian's future. To attempt a jailbreak inside the palace of the ancient royal family, all by himself. How difficult would that be? If Yi Futian succeeded in taking his people away with throngs of cultivators inside the palace, even without the direct involvement of the overlord himself, the ancient royal family would forever be shamed, with no hope ever to raise their heads again. In an instant, Giant God City was feverish over this news, which had swept through the city in a short time. After all, because of all the events that led to this moment, all the cultivators inside Giant God City were paying close attention to this meeting. Now that Yi Futian had set the terms of the battle, how could it not electrify Giant God City? Many people marveled that if Yi Futian could successfully carry out this battle, it would be enough for him to make his name known throughout the world, even in all of the Shangqing domain. Only that no one was optimistic about his prospect, because everyone thought it was an impossible task. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2143, Invasion of the Ancient Royal Family. Chapter 2143, Invasion of the Ancient Royal Family. The ancient royal family of Duan was a majestic city within a city, feeling ancient and historic. At this time outside the ancient royal family, a white-haired man stood there, his deep-set eyes looking straight inside of the city. Behind him, from sky above, many cultivators had come in a hurry, as their attention focused on Yi Futian and the ancient imperial city. Did he intend to go in there by himself? Within the ancient royal family, there were also mighty figures now made their appearance. Many cultivators stood in the void and looked at the person standing outside. They knew what had happened. A man who came from Donghua domain originally had joined Four Corner Village. Now he wanted to enter the ancient royal family under his own power alone to take away their prisoners. His arrogance and audacity spoke volume of his contempt to them all. What Yi Futian said had already offended the powerful cultivators of the entire ancient royal family. They had deemed him arrogant beyond reason, and impertinent to boot. In that palace, the ground was sprinkled with a layer of holy radiance, and a magical force sealed the level below, to prevent the ancient royal family from being affected by the impending battle. In the depth of the ancient royal family, there were two men, Feng Gai and Feng Huan. They were staring at a place somewhere far away, and Feng Gai was overwhelmed with emotions. He did not expect Yi Futian to come in this manner. Now he could only hope that nothing would happen to him. Feng Xiyuan's master? It was Feng Huan, who looked to be about middle-aged. His long black hair was a little disheveled, but his eyes were dark and shiny as he questioned Feng Gai. Feng Gai nodded. He had mentioned Yi Futian to Feng Huan. Isn't he a little too impulsive to do this alone? Feng Huan asked. One man to take on the entire ancient royal family? If it was him, there wouldn't be much concern. There was no upper Ren Huang with perfect great path in all of the ancient royal family of Duan, and he was already perfect at the 7th realm. Even cultivators at the 9th realm would not pose a problem for him. But Yi Futian, as he understood from his father, was only at 5th realm. How could he possibly hope to get in? He doesn't look like someone who behaved carelessly. If he dared to say that, it must mean that he was certain of his chances, said Feng Gai. Of course, it was also possible that Yi Futian had no choice but to take the gamble. If he lost, he would have to surrender the divine techniques. Feng Gai sank deep into his own thoughts. A fearsome divine might envelop the boundless space. Duan Tianxiong stood on the top of the tallest hall in the palace with many cultivators behind him. Their eyes focused on the figure outside. Although the distance was great, in their powerful sight, it was as if everything was right in front of them. Duan Tianxiong was curious to see just how this man, notorious for upsetting the balance of Donghua domain, could really penetrate the ancient royal family like he claimed. Yi Futian came to our territory alone, so you may take action one at a time, but you must not intercept or choreograph your attacks at the same time. Duan Tianxiong announced in a loud but clear voice, full of strength and power. Yes, Overlord. Voices resounded throughout the void. As cultivators of the ancient royal family of Duan, they also cared about their reputations. Yi Futian was a Ren Huang of the 5th realm, attempting to break into the ancient royal family under his own power. If they were to stymie his effort together, it would be as if they were trying to win by numbers alone. Furthermore, was there really nobody from the entire ancient royal family who could take him down? Next to Duan Tianxiong, there was a young man with unmatched temperament, who bore some resemblance to Duan Tianxiong. He was the prince of the ancient royal family of Duan Xiong. As a Ren Huang of the 6th realm, Duan Xiong possessed perfect great path, along with incredibly aggressive strength. He did not believe that Yi Futian could succeed. Him alone would stop Yi Futian in his track. Go and tell all the cultivators of the ancient royal family of Duan to meet him in the challenge. It would be a good opportunity for them to know that there is always someone more powerful than what they have experienced. Duan Tianxiong ordered Duan Xiong. I'll go now. Duan Xiong nodded as he went about carrying out this command. Clearly, they took Yi Futian's entry into the ancient imperial city as a trial to polish the haughty Ren Huang inside the ancient royal family, so they could see just how fearsome a top figure could be from the outside world. Outside the ancient royal family, Yi Futian looked forward and said in a loud and clear voice, Yi Futian from Four Corner Village, seeking your instructions. When his voice faded, he walked into the ancient royal family under the gaze of countless eyes. For a moment, everyone inside Giant God's city stared at him with slight trembling in their hearts, and found that they were all very much looking forward to this battle. Although everyone thought that Yi Futian would lose for sure, they were perhaps still secretly hoping for a different outcome. Yi Futian stepped into the ancient royal family, and a mighty pressure shrouded his body. It was an invisible pressure, formed by the terrifying aura of the mini Ren Huang inside the ancient royal family, and had transformed into an astonishing force. The coercion felt extremely uncomfortable, but he appeared cool and collected as ever, and walked forward in the void. Traces of divine light surrounded him, rendering his body totally radiant, as if he was a transcendent being. At this moment, a figure stood in the sky above Futian. This man was also dressed in white, like a gentle scholar. He was holding a silver long sword that felt like a cold star, gave out a feeling of chilling sadness. His arm moved slightly as the silver long sword whirled slightly with it. A cold air pressed toward Futian, as a cold light swooped toward him. This man was an upper run Huang of the 7th realm. He appeared in an instant, and his sword was so incredibly fast that no one could keep up with its movements. It was only in seconds that a cold atmosphere enveloped the void, chilled the spiritual souls, as countless cold light of the sword sheltering the sky. The area around Futian seemed to have transformed into the realm of swordsmanship, where there was only the sky full of sword aurora. Life and death could be determined in just a turning of the mind. The swords rained down in the sword domain like a meteor shower, and they seemed on the verge to pierce through Futian's body. However, at this moment, the divine light flowing around Futian's body became even more dazzling, and a chiming of the swords rang between heaven and earth. There were countless rays of light that came from his body, and each ray of light turned into a sword intent. The wisps of swordsmanship and divine brilliance, traversed with the meteor sword shower, created a spectacular sight in this space. The two men stood between the sword screens as the other man launched another sword strike, passing through the void, aimed at its mark. But Futian raised his hand and pointed, colliding with the sword of the other. In an instant, the radiant sword river was torn apart, as countless swords pulverized into dust and vanished. The silver-long sword made a crystalline sound as cracks crept on it. Futian pointed his finger forward, and in the next moment, the great path reversed its course, and everything seemed to have returned to their previous state. The body of the other man flew backward, his sword domain disappeared, and the skyful of sword intent also dissipated into nothingness. That swordsman in white stood there looking at Futian, and groaned suddenly as blood trickled down the corner of his mouth. His eyes fixed on Futian, who had never even moved. Just one finger. Although they knew the odds of winning were not optimal, they did not expect to be defeated so badly. Futian casually raised his hand at random, and disarmed the other's swordsmanship with just a point of his finger. Moreover, with the same swordsman's abilities, it seemed that the two of them were not at all on the same level of cultivation. The fact remained that the other man's realm was higher than that of Futian. Awesome, many let out a praise, but they were not too surprised. This was just a Ren Huang of the 7th realm. If Futian wanted to enter the ancient royal family, this was just the beginning. If he had trouble with a Ren Hunag of the 7th realm, then this entire attempt was a ridiculous farce. Futian continued to move forward. There were Ren Huang standing proudly on either side in the sky above in the front, and their eyes all fastened on Futian. Even if his great path was perfect, he was, after all, a Ren Huang of the 5th realm. Could his combat effectiveness be really that powerful? Another Ren Huang of the 7th realm made a move, as he lifted his hand and pressed it down. Suddenly a 5-fingered mountain appeared above Futian. The vast space was overwhelming, and the sky above Futian was completely sealed off. The 5-fingered mountain was flowing with magnificent splendor, as if it could suppress all things, and was totally indestructible. This, in fact, was a very powerful type of the Great Path. Heaven and earth roared as the 5-fingered mountain was on the verge to fall on top of Futian. Futian raised his hand, and pointed a finger at the sky. Suddenly, a brilliant divine sword pierced the center of the mountain. In an instant, countless cracks appeared on it, and in the next moment, the mountain pulverized and collapsed immediately. That Ren Huang still attempted to return with another attack, but Futian's eyes directed toward him. With a single glance, he felt a deep chill to his bones, as if he had stepped into the world of ice sorcery. In this corner of the world, Futian walked towards him, appeared in front of him in one step to traverse the space, as the divine sword pointed at his brow chakra. Bang! He retreated rapidly away from the battlefield. However, everything seemed to return to normal in the next moment. He looked in the distance, and saw that Futian was still where he was without moving, as if everything that just happened was an illusion. It was a trick of the eye sorcery that lured him into Yi Futian's world. Cold sweats crawled down his spine as he stared at the white-haired young man. He realized that this demonically handsome young man was in possession of power that was terrifying beyond words. A person of the seventh realm could not possibly contend with him. Watch out. He is very powerful. He spoke via voice transmission to the others. Yi Futian could bring the others into the world of eye sorcery in just a glance, as that was his divine wheel of the great path. Yi Futian possessed a pair of divine pupils, and one careless move would risk falling into his trap with no hope for redemption. If they were on a real battlefield, he may have already fallen into his hands in a single thought. Above the firmament, golden ancient seals suddenly appeared all over the sky, and there seemed to be extremely radiant patterns that appeared on those ancient seals, which aroused the resonance of the great path. Standing high above the sky, he raised his hand and slammed them forth. Instantly, infinitely golden ancient seals blasted downward at the same time, as the great path resonated with the attack, and the sky and earth shattered by its unstoppable force. Yi Futian looked up and took a step forward. At this moment, many were hearing the sound of Buddha in their ears. Countless golden tablets now surrounded around Yi Futian. Boom, boom, boom. The ancient seal exploded madly, as Yi Futian's speed turned into that of light. In an instant, the crowd saw the two men came into contact, and the person who stood in the way flew out directly. Yi Futian continued forward, even speeding up now as he rushed towards all those cultivators. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2144, Unstoppable. Chapter 2144. Unstoppable. Yi Futian shoved past a lot of people, yet none of them could stop him. Every person who attempted to block Yi Futian was at least a 7th-order Renhuang. People who hadn't reached the high-level Renhuang plane. They didn't even have a chance to make a move. Almost everyone from the ancient royal family was nearby, watching how Yi Futian was marching into the palace, as if there were no resistance at all. It seemed that 7th-order Renhuangs weren't capable enough to thwart him. Yi Futian rushed through another area and slowed down his pace, as he sensed a ton of formidable energy pressing on him from ahead. Several 8th-order Renhuangs were standing in front of him, blocking his path. They also noticed that Yi Futian was approaching. One of them rose in midair, towering over Yi Futian. In an instant, the sky changed color as thunder rumbled in the dark, rolling clouds. The world was transformed in a flash. Yi Futian felt like he was in the great path domain of thunder. The deafening booms that came from the gigantic thunder drum above the man's head drowned out all other sounds. The terrifying thunder could shatter people's spiritual souls. Yi Futian raised his head and took a quick look. It was a quite unusual divine wheel of the great path that contained two types of power of the great path: the great path of thunder and the sonic wave. It was why it could launch an effective attack on its opponent's physical body and the spiritual soul at the same time. Instead of personally charging at Yi Futian, the 8th-order Renhuang waved his hand at the thunder drum. Bang! The sudden blare almost split everyone's ears. Countless people from the ancient royal family could feel their spiritual souls trembling and their qi and blood surging in their bodies. Even cultivators at the Renhuang plain were greatly affected by the shock wave. One could well imagine how horrifying it must be to be directly struck at the center of the storm. Yi Futian felt that infinite divine thunder crashed down upon him from above, and the blinding light flew at his spiritual soul like blazes. He would be slaughtered immediately if he were a little less strong. The invisible sonic wave spread out from Yi Futian's body. A faint shadow of an ancient Buddha with a ferocious face manifested himself behind Yi Futian. The gilded Buddha cast the golden divine light on Yi Futian, as though he dressed him with a set of invincible golden armor. Bang! The blinding light of the thunder crashed down from the sky. It cracked the golden armor and penetrated Yi Futian's body. Glowing with the purple light of the thunder, Yi Futian trembled slightly as he was engulfed by the thunder light. Nevertheless, he remained unscathed even as he was irradiated by the terrifying and ruinous thunder light. He emitted powerful energy of life, which made his body of Wei indestructible. The Eighth Order Renhuang frowned in surprise. Yi Futian was trying to bear the attack with his body. Moreover, the thunder light only jolted Yi Futian a little, and didn't injure him at all. In the Eighth Order Renhuang's eyes, Yi Futian was so arrogant that he didn't take the attack seriously at all. The Renhuang raised his hand, and released numerous shadows that smashed into the battle drum of the Great Path. The battle drum started to pound right away, and the horrifying sound wave of the Great Path swept across the world, as if the earth was about to crack open. Even the cultivators outside of the palace felt the qi and blood surging and rolling in their bodies. Some groaned in agony, and some were bleeding from their mouths. The people inside the palace were not seriously affected, as they were protected by the divine light of the Great Path. But other Renhuangs who were not under the protection suffered the pain and discomfort as well. On the other side, Yi Futian looked like he was about to be devoured by the destructive thunder light. Many Renhuangs were on pins and needles. Would Yi Futian be killed by the ancient royal family if he wasn't strong enough? The ancient royal family would never show any mercy on Yi Futian. It was impossible to control the attack so precisely anyway. The blazing divine light of thunder fell from the sky. Countless pairs of eyes were glued to Yi Futian. Bathing in the dazzling, golden divine light, Yi Futian stood upright and firmly on his feet. His divine body of the Great Path was unbreakable. A scary starry dimension formed around Yi Futian's body. Then it was transformed into a Great Path domain, which blocked the devastating attack. Even this won't do. A look of frustration furrowed the Eighth Order Renhuang's brow. Could a Fifth Order cultivator, with a perfect Great Path, really possess such strong power? Why don't you take a hit from me too? Yi Futian said. Before his voice faded, a majestic and towering Vajra Buddha took shape and emitted the brilliant light of Buddha. The Buddhist voice reverberated in the air and developed an invisible sound wave in the space. It was the Vajra demon-slaying rhythm. Almost instantly, the powerful Eighth Order Renhuang felt dizzy and listless. He outstretched his arm, trying to wave at the war drum of lightning again. However, Yi Futian threw a hard punch at him. Innumerable divine monuments smashed down from the sky and squashed everything in the area. At this moment, Yi Futian seemed extra sturdy and imposing in the Eighth Order Renhuang's eyes. Fierce and relentless, his strike was developed based on his comprehension and cultivation of the gate to world suppression. The Eighth Order Renhuang let out an angry roar. He raised his hand to continue to beat the war drum of lightning, impelling the spine-chilling thunder light to dash against the divine monuments. Nonetheless, an ancient sky tablet that was engraved with words appeared and plummeted from the sky. The Eighth Order Renhuang was caught in a crossfire. Bang! With a loud noise, a crack appeared on the battle drum. The Eighth Order Renhuang was flung away. He vomited a pool of blood, his face ghastly pale. The Eighth Order Renhuang was vanquished. Bang! Yi Futian kept marching forward like a conquering hero. The void trembled beneath his feet. Several Eighth Order Renhuangs joined hands and summoned a stunning amount of power of the Great Path. They were ready to attack Yi Futian at the same time. Eighth Order Renhuangs can't harm me even when working together, said Yi Futian. Instantaneously, the incoming assailants were encased in Yi Futian's Great Path domain. The light of Buddha, the Buddhist voice, and the divine monument of world suppression bombarded the Renhuangs trapped in the starry dimension. It was a horrific sight. Yi Futian didn't consider Eighth Order Renhuangs worthy of his attention. Just when one of the cultivators was about to fight back, Yi Futian kicked it up a notch. A brilliant and magnificent pattern became visible in the starry dimension, and a majestic golden-winged giant pung bird emerged in the sky. The bird was slaughtering various big demon beasts, as though it was the king of beasts. The extraordinary phenomenon looked remarkably real. Even old Ma was staggered by the scene unfolding before his eyes. Everyone in the village knew that Yi Futian could comprehend the divine techniques, and even cultivate them. Yet, no one realized that he had already achieved so much, and could successfully conjure up the extraordinary phenomenon. The divine techniques were the villagers' unique heritage. How did Yi Futian master the techniques as an outsider? Anyway, Yi Futian managed to do it. He charged at one of the cultivators like the Golden Wing Rock Emperor, who could put any monster to death. Yi Futian's target was busy blocking the attack from the divine monument. He was barely holding up against the divine monument when Yi Futian rushed toward him as the golden-winged giant Peng bird. A glint of golden light flashed briefly, and blood sprayed across the sky. Another 8th Order Renhuang was hurled away. He is so powerful. He can defeat an 8th Order Renhuang with one strike. The onlookers were dumbfounded. The terrifying golden-winged giant Peng bird soared in the sky and pounced on their enemies. All the 8th Order Renhuangs were brought to their knees in the blink of an eye. No one could block Yi Futian's path. The 8th Order Renhuangs suffered the same fate as the 7th Order ones. They were not good enough to stop Yi Futian. It would be a tremendous feat even if his quest ended here. Someone far away from the palace commented. Yi Futian had demonstrated superb strength and talents. No wonder he could become a well-known spokesperson of Four Corner Village in the Donghua domain despite being an outsider. Even Duan Yi and Duan Shang, who were under Old Ma's control, were amazed by Yi Futian's performance so far. They never expected this alchemy grandmaster to have such extraordinary fighting ability. Even 8th Order Renhuangs couldn't stop him from advancing. There were always people better than you, no matter how good you might think you were. Duan Yi's foolish plot against Yi Futian only backfired on himself. While Yi Futian was striding forward, Duan Tianxiong spoke up. Everyone below the 9th Order should stay back. Many Renhuangs who attempted to thwart Yi Futian immediately drew back and left the battlefield. They were not capable enough to join the fight and could only watch from the sidelines. A 9th Order Renhuang showed up in front of Yi Futian. He stood firm like an insurmountable mountain that was blocking Yi Futian's way. Yi Futian also stopped and gazed at the middle-aged man in front of him. The man with indomitable spirit put up a stout defense with his presence. Yi Futian's face grew somber. After all, Yi Futian was only a 5th Order Renhuang. His cultivation level was significantly lower than his opponent's. Even though he had activated the Emperor's will to kill someone of the 9th Order in the past, he was well aware that a 9th Order Renhuang would be a formidable enemy. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.